if you haven't done the work to get crystal clear on your mission and your why, you're going to sound like everybody else, and you're also going to present yourself like everyone else internally to your team.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Welcome back to the Better Than Rich Show. I'm your host today, Mike Abramowitz, and we are here with Christine Marie. Christine, welcome to the Better Than Rich Show.
Thank you, Mike. I'm excited today. I'm excited to do a live. It's fun to be on the other end of this. So thank you.
Well, you've been crushing it with your content. It pops up on Facebook. So, listener, if you're not following Christine, you need to. She is just spitting wisdom. I think every day, right? You're sharing some sort of wisdom of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
with guests. I mean, thank God it's not just me. That would be a lot to come up with every single day. And you were on the show 2 weeks ago. For those of you who are listening, go back and listen. 2 weeks ago, Mike and I did a show where he was my guest and he crushed it. So yeah.
Well, tell us more about that. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's talk about that.
No, this is going to be great. And listener, if you don't know the origin, we got introduced through Qasim, who was on the show. He's the only guest that we had on the show 2 times. So we've had almost 250 episodes or so. He's the only guest we invited back twice because his first one was just dynamite. And in fact, we turned one of his clips into a reel that ended up going like what we would say viral. It reached like, I don't even know, millions of views or whatever, because he was kind of went on his soapbox on something that was like deemed racist. So it was awesome. so so it went viral. So we're like, we gotta have him back, you know. But Qasim's a brother. He's a great friend, and I'm just so grateful that he made the introduction to us. And you have just such an awesome story. Everything that you have created, but also everything that was created before you as a fourth generation tradeswoman, and being the fractional CMO for a $75 million home service company. You're speaking the language to these guys that are listening to the show, people in the trades, they're running seven-figure business in the trades, in the home services space, and we want to give them some goods. So
Yeah.
why don't you give us a little bit of a coloring as to, from your seat, why do you feel like this like brand identity piece of like reputation is so important for these guys? Because many of them were good at the thing and they're like, let me just keep doing the thing I'm good at. And then it like evolves into a way to make money. It evolves into, let me provide, help other people like my mom or my wife or my sister or my brother, bring them on board. And then it's like, it evolves into a business, but it's like really an owner operator job with a couple of friends and people that help to start it. Talk to us about reputation. Talk to us about legacy, this generational thing that it actually could be built in a way that outlasts the first person who created it.
Yes. I love that. And I'm going to pull a Mike Abramowitz because you went in a million different directions, and then that was so fun for me to kind of guide us from there. So I'll go a Mike, and I'll go in a couple different directions and you can take it. Legacy. I'm so glad you said that word, Mike, because my great grandfather started our family business in 1922. And since then, it actually has very much so been owner operator. And about 3, 4 years ago, my dad was considering, okay, do I want to succeed the business? Have, the succession, is that the goal? Or is it scaling? Or is it to sell? But because the business was so tied to him, there really was no way to do any of those three things because there really wasn't anything to sell. Scaling would mean, he'd have to multiply himself, and he didn't have the capacity to do that at the time. And then succession, neither of my brothers raised their hands. And so even though it's such a male dominated industry, but I raised my hand and said, I don't want this 100-year-old brand to be just die or hand it over to someone else. And so when we're thinking of creating with the lens of legacy, it almost forces the issue where this cannot be tied to me, because then it's not going to be able to be sustained beyond me. Whether it's handing something, I think we talked about this before, like if I want to hand something over, there has to be something outside of me. But for so many of us, and I'm saying us too, because even though it's my family business, I have my own business at the same time. If it is tied to who I am and it's tied to me in terms of systems, processes, everything's in my mind in terms of data. Nothing is really tangible in terms of existing in its own, let's say, circumference, like a tangible entity outside of me. And when we think about legacy, it's really building something to then hand away and hand off. But it's this really beautiful dichotomy. And this is where we cannot be binary in our thinking. It has to have, multiple sides and corners in some sense, because when you think of legacy, it has to have this breathing room to be something outside of you, but then also have the lifeline flow from you. So every single one of us is building a legacy. Every single one of us, every single moment of every single day, predicated in the decisions that we make, we're forming our legacy right here, right now. But so many, when we think of legacy, we think of something in the distant future that one day we'll look back on. But when we think of I'm currently building right now, there's a radical responsibility for myself and then also for this entity outside of me. So when we think legacy minded, how do I look forward to the future of I want to be able to look back on my life and say, what about me? When I turned 30, I wrote my eulogy. And that was one of the best exercises I've ever done because it really helped me to establish who do I want to be? And then who do I now need to become in order to accomplish those steps? So that lands to, okay, the business. What do I want this business to be? What's the ideal vision for the business so that at the end of my life, what is said about my business, what is said about me in terms of being a parent, a father, a mother, brother, sister, what is said about me in terms of leader, all of us are building different things based on the different roles that we play. And so we need to be able to look from that forward vision, the sitting in that seat of at the end of my life, to then look backward and say, okay, what are the steps I need to take to then curate this legacy predicated in who I am as the individual, as the business entity, and then also in terms of the family perspective too. We can't ever think of ourselves as anything removed from those people in our life. We have a direct correlation. Even just the other day, I was speaking with the CEO of I think at this point, it's close to $100 million business, and it's in the trades. And he's founded a couple different construction businesses, home services businesses at this point. And he was saying that the number one aspect that has helped him get to this place is relationships. But it's all of those relationships are predicated in who he is. So there's this entity needs to exist outside of me. It needs to be separate, not tied to me at all. Yet who I am also has dramatic impact on that thing. So that's why we can't be binary in black and white, because otherwise we're going to miss either the health of myself as the individual or the health of the business. Both have to be able to coexist well. And then the accumulation and amalgamation of all of those is what equates to our legacy at the end of our life.
And we're under the assumption if somebody's listening to this podcast or if someone's listening to this conversation, they probably want to have something that's bigger than just them. So is that the assumption that we have at the moment? So we don't have to necessarily go in a direction of trying to convince someone or influence someone to want to have something bigger than just them, because there are people in the trades that are just like, I just want to put food on the table, dude. I just want to make my money, make sure my kids don't starve, my wife doesn't have to starve or whatever, my spouse, right? And, just have a better upbringing than I had, right? And like, if I die and they are taken care of, like, that's all. Are we under the illusion that someone listening right now wants more than just what I just said? Or do we need to speak to that person and remind them as to why any of the legacy piece even matters? Why even try to build a business that's generational? Why does it matter to have, predictability? Are we under the, so just if you want to speak to that, if not, then I have a tactical question that I want to ask you.
I actually think it's so important to address that question, because what it does do is that it forces us to recognize that whether we want to build a legacy or not, we are. It's just like that concept of every single one of us has a personal brand. Every single one of us is building some semblance of a reputation, some semblance of a through line. Like we talked about this on when you came on my show. Every single one of us usually can point to our parents and be like, I'm this way because of my father. And actually, there's this story of two brothers where one is a raging alcoholic, homeless, lives under a bridge. Another is very, semblance of success, got a wife and family, it's stable in a good revenue generating business, right? So nothing super flashy, but he's stable. The other brother's homeless. Both of them were asked, how is it that you ended up to where you are today? And both of them said, because of my dad. So one alchemizes and one uses as an excuse. Every single one of us, and this is where radical responsibility comes into play. And it's actually kind of uncomfortable when we realize that what we're building now is setting an example, setting something, kind of like setting a stage that then our kids are going to come on to. Our lives are setting a stage for the next generation. And so then it's the question of, okay, well, if I'm building something to just feed the wife and kids, that's still a legacy in a sense. It might be a smaller one. It might be something where it's kind of a smaller stage, but we have to recognize that every single action, every single decision that we make, every single thing that we do is attributing to a legacy that we're building. And Mike, I actually think it's easier and safer to not think that way than to hold every decision and thus every single day with a semblance of intentionality. It's easier to play small, it's easier to hide. But then when we realize the fact is that each one of us is creating a canvas that is our legacy at the end of our life. And so I think it's that person can't ever say, oh, I just want to feed the wife and kids. It's okay, if that's your goal, then how are you going to do that in the most like rewarding way, man, that you are proud of the life you've lived and you're actually taking the time to be intentional with, okay, providing for the wife and kids. Well, what does that actually mean? And then creating KPIs for each one of those areas of your life, even if it's not shooting for the stars, it's still recognizing the intention that is required and demanded for every single one of us, because every single one of us is building a stage for the next generation, whether we like to admit it or not.
Okay. So we're going to take all that, listener, and now my job is to pull out the tactical. So let's say if someone's listening right now, they're like, all right, Christene, you got Christine Marie. Do you go by Christine or Christine Marie? Just so I know.
It's Christine. Marie's my aunt. If you look at my passport, my last name is Marie.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you
Yeah.
always like put them together where it's a one first name or
No.
two. All right. Anyway, so Christine, let's go to tactical for a moment. And if someone is hearing this, they're like, all right, I got it. How does that translate to my business? And how can I potentially articulate my story of my legacy that I'm already currently building into something that is revenue generating or something that is creating a brand identity or an ethos or a hero's journey or
Right.
into my marketing, into my sales, into my fulfillment, into my operations. What are there like steps? Is there a framework? Is there something that you can teach here? Is there something you could speak to from a
Yeah.
tactical standpoint? Someone listen to the show where they're like driving in the car and like, wow, that was really good. I'm gonna probably have to listen to that again and grab my pen because that was really tactical and something I could take with me to my, into my business.
Yeah.
Just riff on whatever makes the most sense if there is something. If not, we'll build it right now together if there isn't one.
Good. I love it. Well, I really, really love the question of your eulogy. Who do you want to be? Have you actually ever sat and thought about that? Because Mike, I do host, in addition to having the family business and then also having a community for people in the trades that we're actively building right now, I do host actually retreats for executives who are looking to get to the next level on an individual level, because at the end of the day, the business is going to be a direct ramification of our own ability to think bigger than where we are here in this present moment. And the way that you do this effectively, you do that 2-day intensive. What do you call your 48-hour time with the
In
execs?
an install program, 2 to 3 days install program. Yeah.
I love it. That's exactly what you guys are doing is so critical and important. And actually, Mike, do you mind sharing a little bit about that? I'm sure your folks listening know that, but just for those in the back who don't, can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I want to use that as an example,
Sure, sure.
but I want to make sure people have context.
It's like a war room. 3 days locked up, no distractions, just GSD, just get shit done. So 3 days, install the programs, install the systems, client journey, CRM, record the videos, put it all into one predictable flow, check the box, and then we maintain it after those 3 days.
I love it. And Mike, that is so important. The tactics are so necessary. But if we don't have this first question of, well, what do I even want in the first place and have that crystallized vision, then what we're building could perhaps be a replica of what other people have told us we wanted. It could be something that was passed down from generations to say, this is how you should live your life. It could be something that we're chasing from the external that's been afforded or handed to us rather than something from within that's a driver. And when we understand what the core motivation is and it's coming from an internal place, man, we're going to have so much more resilience. We're going to have so much more of a man, like a joy and visceral experience in the winning that is when we're doing someone chasing someone else's prize, it's not going to hold the same reward. So before we get to that point where we end up going into that install day, it's taking the time to ask the question of, well, what is my eulogy? Who do I want to be at the end of my life? What do I want to have built? Like, what would make me feel proud of the life that I've lived? And then asking that question, who do I want to be in relation to my business? What do I want to have built at the end of my life? And then also taking it to a relational point. So examining the business and asking it in terms of like, if I was to vision this out 40 years from now, 30 years from now, what is it? We think in like 5-year increments, but truly like dream big, and then it's the working backwards and seeing if it's even reasonable, and then what are the relationships necessary to get us to that next level. Because the CEO that I was talking to just the other day, we were really diving into how his cultivation of leaders was predicated in the realization that his vision was impossible apart from doing so. So when we're so clear on, at the end of my life, I want to have built XYZ, then we can create the action plan necessary to accomplish it. But if we don't take that initial time to begin with, so many folks in the trades are living with their head down. They're living, getting to the next day, working 9 to 5. Another CEO that I talked to, he said that one of the most important things he's ever done for his business was to dedicate one day every couple of weeks in a very rhythmic, wet manner, every 2 weeks. He took a full 8-hour day and actually had zero input. So he had no podcasts playing, no books, no nothing. And he literally just sat and allowed for creativity to flow, to think on the business and actually create solutions. Because if we're constantly focusing on the problems, there's no space to actually create the solution to that problem. And then we're going to, do the same thing over and over again and wondering why we're self-perpetuating the same problems that we had the day before. So allowing the space and time for every single one of the folks listening, regardless of how busy your schedule is. I know, trust me, I think all of us are feeling so overwhelmed and like there's so much work to be done. So what then do I need in order to create the space to think about the vision and think about the actual people that I need to have in place in order to get to that next level? And it could be getting another partner. It could be getting somebody where you actually, when we think about subs and general contractors, if you actually want to move from the sub to the general contractor level, that's a big jump and that's a big change in the way that you're orienting your business. So something like that, that's a big question. Okay, what are the pieces I need to have in play to do that? And then the next piece of that, so first visioning, what do I want at the end of my life in terms of the business? That's really just taking off the constraints of timeline as well. And then just allows you to think more clearly. And then looking at your relationships, because the health of your family is really actually going to play a part in the health of your business. If your family is suffering and you've got your wife sitting in the bedroom every night complaining about how long you're working, that is at some point going to corrupt and bleed into the health and vibrancy of the business. Another CEO I was working with, he built this empire of a trades business. They're in multiple states around the US, and they're constantly buying businesses and acquiring them right now. And his wife said, I'm going to give you the first, 20 years dedicate to the business. The last 20 years are for me. And he's changed dramatically in the way that he operates his business right now because he and his wife had an agreement in that way. So we have to get the relational part down in the business and outside of the business. And so much of that is predicated on what do you even want in the first place and what's the vision for both.
I love the examples with the relationships. Can you give some examples of what you've heard some of your some of these CEOs and some people in the trades have said that eulogy, and maybe even you could speak to the one that you wrote when you were 30, of some ideas that they might be able to brainstorm or chew on if they're kind of saying like, I like the idea. Thanks for the idea, but could you take it a step further and give me some brainstorming prompts, questions, maybe lead-ins that they can do this activity with?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually pretended like I was reading my eulogy. So when I was starting to write, it really was the process of Christine Marie at the end of her life. Man, I wish I had it with me. It's in this little pink. I'm on the Mediterranean Sea right now, and so all my things at home are far away. But I have this little pink notebook, and I just started writing. Who do I want to be in terms of what do I want people to say about the way I engage with them on a personal level? And so it was helpful to start with, how do I want to make people feel in terms of my leadership? What do I want to have built in terms of philanthropic efforts? What do I want to have built in terms of this particular business as it pertains to the number of employees? Do I want to be in multiple states? Do I want to be actually the primary one selling and doing fulfillment? Or is it just, I mean, honestly, I've seen a number of contractors just be the selling machine, and then they've got all the subs doing fulfillment. That really allows for you to scale, and it allows for you to grow quickly. So do I want to do fulfillment and do I want to do the selling piece, or just one or the other? Because getting clarity on that is really going to speak to size. It's going to speak to manpower. So those are some just kind of normal questions. And then going a little bit deeper too, the more that we're really connected with my ideal for the relational aspect. And I know relationship has really been on my mind a lot, Mike, because if our relationships are really not in a good place, we're constantly going to feel like we've just got these claws in our back holding us back from being able to move into the freedom that we're trying to build for ourselves and for our families. And so we need to make sure that the people close to us are actually in alignment with this vision that we're putting together. So again, just some of those questions around, what do I want as it pertains to the actual business with the fulfillment, and then the size, the service itself. Mike, I think that when it comes to kind of the eulogy on the service deliverability, I actually didn't get too specific around the what in terms of product, because that has evolved so much. I've had my own business for 6 years. My family business has had its business for 104 years at this point, and there has been evolving in the product delivery. But what has never changed is the values in place. And so as I'm writing, like, how do I want to come across to other people? What that showed me were some of my core values that I didn't even realize in the first place. Another thing that I asked myself a lot was, well, how do I want to travel? Like, do I actually want to be kind of worldly wise? And what that did was, it reflected back to me was, I need to change either what I'm saying I want or change my behavior to align with it. So we've got a lot of people who are working to this distant future and this distant end, where when I'm 60, when I'm 70, I'm going to retire, but they're not actually positioning themselves to be able to do that, because they're not affording freedom where everything's tied to them and there's no systems and processes in place. So if you're saying you want to, so, and I'm saying like, as you're writing down and you're saying that you want to be traveling and spending time with your family and be done working at 70, are you actually positioning the business to be self-sustaining without you? Or do you need to sell it? Okay, what systems do you need to put in place to be able to have it be something to be acquired? So that's really where once you write it down, then you can say, am I even positioned to do any of this in the first place?
Before we take a pivot, because I'm going to take a pivot, piggybacking off of what you just said, is there anything else on this? Because right now we're at the high level of like, it's almost like a psychological and emotional shift on how I want to approach the business. And I have a
Mhm.
tactical like pivot question that I want to ask you in just a moment. Is there anything else that you want to click on the eulogy or the relationships or any of these pieces before I ask a specific systems question?
Mm. I'd like to just point out the fact that every single one of the listeners has a personal brand. And all of this is so important, because if we're not actually cultivating that online and actually cultivating it in the time of kind of that space I was talking about, and I call it a space because it is so critical that each one of us goes there to be creative, work through these questions, identify what we want and what our values are, because that's our differentiator. If we blend in with everybody else and we don't actually stand out in any kind of a way, we're just going to sound like everyone, especially in this world of AI where everyone's using ChatGPT or Claude or any other tool to help them with content creation. If you haven't done the work to get crystal clear on your mission and your why, you're going to sound like everybody else, and you're also going to present yourself like everyone else internally to your team. And that's not going to hold the legs for the purpose of retention and growth and scalability, because each one of the leaders that is necessary to grow and expand the business needs to be able to be bought into something that is so different from everyone else. And if you're not taking the time and space to even become clear on that in the first place, you're going to blend in with everyone else and not be able to retain.
Great. And listener, if you haven't listened to Sarah Hardwick's episode, she talked about beyond giftology from the late John Rulin, and we talk a little bit about the importance of relationships. And I just want to kind of click on that like no matter what business or industry you're in, it is a relationship business. You are building a relationship through marketing. You're building a relationship with your client in the sales process, in the fulfillment process, with your team. These are all humans, so it's all human interactions, which is all relationships. Even though there's transactions involved, it's still relational. So everything that Christine is talking about is extremely relevant in that regard of how we're approaching these interactions with these other humans. So
Yeah.
I do want to click on the systems you said. So the systems and processes to buy back time is what I heard. What I heard is we do want to install predictability and install the system so that way at 70 I can go travel or play grandpa or grandma or whatever it might be without having the constraints of the business. So if you are sitting down with whether it be inside of your business, inside of a CEO's business, or speaking to just someone in the audience right now, what is the audit that you would suggest that they do in order to
Mm,
question of like where do I start? Like how do you define a system? I mean, we define a system as a series of if then statements. So it's just a process, if then on a flow chart, and then a playbook, the SOPs, the documentation of the flow chart, and then who's running the plays, which is the team, and then the tech solution that they're using, that the team is using to run those plays. So it's just like we have our definition. I'd love to hear yours. How do you define a system? What does it mean to have a business that's predictable? Where do you start? Is it in marketing or is it in sales? Is it in fulfillment? Is it in operations? Is it in finance? How do you know where
right.
to start? Are there certain tactical steps or audit suggestions that you might, um, you know, yeah. Any suggestions there that you want to riff on, Christine?
Yeah, I love your definition of systems, Mike. And frankly, I'd love to just kind of go with that and use that as a foundation moving forward because I think it's so well articulated. The way where we start with kind of our audit, so to say, is we start at the very beginning and work our way all the way through. You mentioned customer journey earlier today, and I would highly encourage every single person listening. We are never too big to not do this in our business, regardless if we're under 1 million or we're over 50 million. It's never too late and never too soon to do this. It's literally Googling your business from I like honestly turning on a VPN and going anonymous on Google and then also going onto ChatGPT and asking ChatGPT because now we're not just optimizing for search engines, which is like a Google, but now we're trying to optimize for answer engines. So answer engine is any kind of AI tool where you would put a question in and it gives you an answer back. So we're now facing a whole different category of type of engaging online. And so I honestly like typing it into both and saying, hey, let's take a painting company, for example, or a foundation repair company. So I type in, hey, I need to know what is the best painting company near me or in, let's say, Maryland or Northern Virginia. And then in the same thing, the same prompt in ChatGPT. And then depending, I want to see what the results are. And then depending if my name comes up soon, I'll take an audit of that, but then also go and click on the experience. I'll look at the copy that comes right underneath it. So literally, what does that query give me? Paying attention to that. Is that an accurate representation of the business? And, we talked about this before, Mike, about, just there's a big difference between an under 3 million, under $1 million business versus 10 to $50 million. So regardless of where you are, this is still a good approach to actually see how you're showing up in search and is it an accurate representation of who you say you want to be as a business. Clicking on it and going to the experience on the web page from mobile and desktop, and then going through and actually calling on the phone and filling out a form, actually completing that first couple of steps, couple of click actions that your lead is going to go through, and then seeing what the experience is like is so, so important. And again, CMO of a $75 million business, I did this whole process and I found that we were waiting on the phone for 45 seconds before we could even leave a voice message. And we were wondering why people were bouncing at 30 seconds. So there's a reason why every single one of us needs to do this, because there's probably just going to be little hiccups here and there. And that was a $75 million business, whereas a 45-second hold time before we could leave a voicemail. Another thing that we found is, a lot of our competitors are having automated text messages sent, automated emails sent, and just instant connection. And for a lot of our smaller mom and pop shops, my family business included, we had to set this up for them as well. Man, there wasn't an instant connection. So if I'm the customer and I'm just trying to get a hold of somebody, I'm going to keep calling all the way through. And at some point, it's actually not going to matter so much if there's a lot of stars behind your name. I just need somebody to come out. I just need a quote. And people are not patient. And especially depending on your business, if it's more of a commodity business versus, man, there's a real need. My HVAC is broken and it is sweltering outside. You're just looking for an instant connection. So when you go and you're looking at kind of the rates and reviews and the presentation online, the Google reviews and the way it shows up is so important, but really the ability to connect and respond right away is so important. So that's kind of like the first piece of the customer journey that we look at. I'll take a quick pause before I keep going in the other steps of the.
This is great. We call that in our community, there's the 5 I's of marketing. And what I just heard you talk about is the ignorant phase. So the first I is ignorant. So when someone is ignorant to your business, what is it that they're experiencing? And that might be someone that saw a Facebook ad or saw, it on just SEO or AEO, or even if someone was referred to you from a friend, but they wanted to just Google it, right? Like however they're finding you, they're completely ignorant, and then we're getting them to be informed, so which is the second I. So it's ignorant to informed. And now they're informed. Well, what is their experience like? Now, as I'm getting informed about my business, how informed are you? Is it a good experience? Is there friction, which is a word we use a lot in the show? So what is that experience like? Now, once I'm informed, now we're going from informed to intrigued, right? Where we want to get them intrigued enough to like fill out the form, or to give us a phone call, or to send us a text message, or to interact with our chat bot. And then once they're intrigued, then we're going to get them interested. Ideally, we get them interested in booking a call, like a discovery call, or booking an on-site visit or something along those lines. And then once they're interested, our goal is to get them from interested to invested. And that's the sales process. That's where you do some sort of discovery, some sort of pre-frame, some sort of emotional tie-in, giving them offers. We like to do a 3-option offer close, right? But we're taking them through a journey right now, which I really love. So you're at the top of the funnel. We did an audit. What's the website look like? What's the speed to lead feel like? What is the what does the marketplace say about my business? And then what's next? I mean, take us through this audit. This is awesome. This is great. This is what. Yeah, keep running.
And so, I love those eyes. That's so, so, so good. And all of that, I just want to kind of tie all that in a bow because that's so important. Y'all, what's the experience you want your audience to have with you? And there's a big difference between putting like a fact motivated business in terms of how you present versus an experiential motivation in terms of how your pictures show up, what kind of text and copy you're using, what experience. A strong brand sets the emotional expectation for the experience that they're going to have when they interact with your brand. And so that's such an important point as they're like being intrigued and being interested. What is the actual experience? What do you want to make them feel? So one of the biggest core parts of what we do is not just being data driven, but really being empathy driven, because they need to immediately be the hero of the story the second they come on your website, the second they interact with you, the second they even look at your ad copy. I'm so glad you brought up Facebook ads, right? Like, what is the experience that you're presenting that they're going to have? And this is where person to person is so, so, so critical. We talked about relationships earlier. We are forming a relationship with through every single touch point, and we need to be looking at business through an emotional and relational lens. Harvard found that 95% of our business purchase decisions is taking place in our subconscious, which is where our emotions live. Every single person we do business with is making an emotional decision about us, whether we realize it or not. And so if we're not tapping into their emotions, or we're focusing so much on us and what makes us so special, rather than, hey, we understand who you are, what you want, and we're going to create an experience where we're going to make you feel like family, or whatever it is. We actually tested this one of our businesses had this tagline that they had been using for literally decades. They've been using the same tagline. We A/B tested it with something much more focused on, from our family to yours. And it was much more so relational. It was much more familial sounding. And that exponentially won out than this familiar tagline that everybody knew, yet it had it was all about the company. It had nothing to do with the customer. And so when we when we think about that question of what is the experience I want to deliver, now do the audit. But if we're not clear on what the experience that we want to deliver is, this audit is going to kind of lead up to be null and void, and we're not even sure what we're measuring it against. So I just wanted to make that note there because you reminded me of that, Mike.
Great. That's a great note. We had Brian Soy on the show. We did a whole hero's journey from Donald Miller
Yes, Donald
walkthrough.
Miller.
So it's
Love
really
it.
strong. So listener, you can go back and listen to that unless Christine wants
Yeah.
to riff on the story brand. We had a pretty much a full episode on just breaking down the whole
Great.
story brand concept, which is great. Anything else on that piece on the psychological, emotional, where the emotions are of your avatar during each phase of the client journey? And right now they're at the top of the funnel. So they're ignorant. How do we want to interact with them when they're ignorant and informed and intrigued? What are we saying to them? What are the emotions that we want to stir up? We could even talk about that. We probably want to stir up trust, credibility. We probably want to, I'm like you, you're like me. All your neighbors are like you. And those are the people that we serve. We serve people like
Yes.
you. So like, even if you want to give a little bit of tactical ideas of how to
Yeah.
inspire the desire during those different those top of the funnel phases before we kind of continue on that audit.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to just okay, Mike, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So we have actually run questions through past customers to better understand how they felt before coming to work with us. And that was really helpful because granted, everyone is different, yet we can put these into categories of, okay, categorically, our customers are feeling this particular way before they come to us. And the reason why it's so important to actually ask the customer is because when we've worked with businesses, we go in, they have an assumption around how the customer is feeling, but then when we actually do the audit, we actually found that there was disparity between how the salesman thought the customer is feeling and then how the customer actually felt. And so let's just ask the customer. I have found so many times that, man, we've got this awesome data pool that we could go and inquire of our customers if we actually activated our email list for anything other than just a sale. They've got so much to say, especially if we gave them a great experience. We could go in and even work that into our post-work survey that we send to them and just say, hey, how did you feel beforehand and how do you feel now? Because what we're selling and what we're marketing and what we're promising the customer is an emotional transformation. It's not just, hey, we're going to change your home, or hey, we're going to improve whatever is broken right now. Because what we're not doing, we're not just taking them back to baseline. We're actually improving it better than it was before. And so when we're thinking about this, it's just a couple questions here. What are the emotional transformation promises that we could actually make our customers based on historical data that actually does take place for our customers. Go back and read reviews of your past customers. That's a great place to look. Add that question or a question like it into your post-production surveys. Go in and actually send a survey to your customers. Identify your top customers and go and ask them. Like, be engaged with your customers, whether they're, it's been a couple years, whether they're more recent. There's tactical ways to do it. And what I've found is that people are so excited to talk about themselves. They want to tell you, they want to share all about how honestly they changed in the process, their home and experience changed. And so the more opportunities we actually give our customers to talk, the better. And it's really important that we're also documenting it along the way. Mike, that's something I've seen a lot, is that talk about this customer journey process. A lot of times we're not actually capturing data well for a lot of our home service businesses. They don't have the back end set up to be actually tracking and thus being able to have an amalgamation of data from these individual customer experiences and conversations. So the more we actually, to your entire business, which is the implementation and installation of services and systems, what that does is that it allows for us to better track and better understand the emotional aspects of our customers along the way throughout the entire process. So in one sense, yes, we can ask them directly, but if we are able to implement what your team does and have systems set up that's tracking it automatically, then we're able to spit out an emotional data-driven result at the end of every single customer life cycle. So yes, go back historically, but set up systems moving forward to track the emotional transformation.
Yeah, this is really good. And you could piggyback off of this. So this is what my framework that I like to use when I'm getting a testimonial, because video is king. So getting a survey filled out is great, but if you can get a video from your client because they're a fan, this is a framework that I would recommend. So an introduction, like who I am, right? So and you give this as a prompt. So listener, you could just take this note. This is the prompt that you would want to give to your homeowner that's already a customer and they're a fan of your company. You say, you could introduce yourself, like what area of town you live in, and where, however you want to introduce yourself, what your initial struggles were before we met and why you reached out to us, what was the problem, then what made you choose us, like why did you book with us, why did you choose to sign up with us, what was the result that we gave you, would you recommend us and why, and then suggest at the end why, what's the best way that they should get in touch with us, that you seem has been helpful for you. So that might sound something like this. Hi, my name is Mike Abramowitz. I live at, over in St. Augustine and Villages of Valencia. Before I called, before I called Dusty Lawn Service, my yard was a mess. It was a disaster. I was out there, I was sweating bricks, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I went to Google, I searched, Dusty came up, looked like a pretty nice guy. So I texted him, and I'll tell you what, he responded right away. It was quick, it was easy, it was awesome. I had him come out, and he blew me away with his professionalism. He walked my property with me, gave me a couple of different options. I chose him right away. The result has been great. We're 2 months in. My lawn is amazing. It's all taken care of. I highly recommend Dusty. If you want to get in touch with Dusty, I just text him. So you can hit me up. I'd be happy to give you his phone number, but I would just give him a text message and see for yourself. It's been a great experience. So that's the framework: introduction, initial struggle, why you chose them, what the result has been, recommendation, and then a call to action. So here's what happens, listener. If you just train your customer on how you want them to give you the testimonial, that is now an asset that you could be able to use because it's speaking directly to all your future customers. So it's not just getting a video testimonial, it's really a marketing tool that you could be able to use to enter into any of these stages of the emotional journey that Christene is talking about. So let me kick it back to you though. I have one more thing I want to hit on, but obviously I want to pull out of you with the best stuff that I can while you're here.
Yeah, and Mike, just to add, if I may add a little bit to
Please.
your how they felt. My yard was a mess, and I felt, you said sweating bricks. Really encourage your customer to add how they felt, because that's what people are going to resonate with. Like everyone has before and after pictures, and if you don't, you should. But the before and after pictures are so great. and adding in the extra layer of the feeling. Because remember, 95% of our purchases take place in our subconscious. So we need to make them know that there will be a feeling transformation. I felt frustrated and I feel relief. I felt annoyed. I didn't know what to do. I felt helpless. I felt confused. I felt angry. I felt powerless, whatever it is. And then today I feel this way because of Dusty. Thank God for Dusty. Now everyone's a big fan of Dusty.
Dusty's good, man. If you're in St.
Dusty's
Augustine,
great.
that's really good. I'm glad you clicked on that because ultimately, whatever you can get, I don't want to say get, but whatever you can guide or instruct or educate your customer on, at least they have a chance to give you what you want, but you want to know what you want before you ask is my invitation.
Love
I have
it.
a visual of a client journey just to capture it for this episode.
Yeah.
Obviously, if anybody wants to, reach out, you can. But just so there's a visual, if anybody's watching on YouTube, I'll share my screen just so it's clear of what we're talking about when we talk about a client journey. And I'll just zoom in so anybody could see. So essentially, someone finds us on a website, media, or whatever, and they either fill out a contact us form or there's a lead magnet request. Then they go through some sort of sequence and they go through a lead magnet sequence. They book a discovery call and all of these different emotions that happen here. They book a discovery call and then we do an on-site. They either buy or they don't buy. So if they buy, they go through an if yes sequence. If they don't buy, they go through an if no sequence. If they did buy, they go through a 12-month sequence where we're nurturing them, which lets them fill out a referral form to give us some recommendations or referrals. The referral gets a thank you message, and then the referral that they recommended goes all the way back to the top of the funnel. And then long-term re-engagement campaign for check-in calls. The check-in call is scheduled and gets them back in front of us for some sort of service agreement. So I show this because this is a very long client journey, but that's what we want to help anybody who's listening to the show or watching on YouTube. It's not just about let me go make the sale today and then peace out. I never want to talk to you again. All this is a culmination of nurturing a relationship to not only just maximize the lifetime value of the client where they spend as much money with you, but it's to maximize the lifetime value of the relationships that you're building, which with every single client you do, with referrals, with introductions, with, you almost want to make a goal. Like, could you get invited to like a family gathering or something, like be a part of their family with them, not just you did the job and that's it. So anything you want to speak to? I know we're kind of coming up against the exits already, but anything you want to speak to on the client journey, on the user experience, some of these emotions, anything you want to click on here?
So many. I love the visual. I love it so much. I'm so glad you talked about the bottom of the funnel because Mike, that's so often where we forget. That's where we kind of can trickle off and not tend to our customers at the very end. Yet, y'all imagine if we didn't ever have to pay for our customers ever again because or leads ever again because we've got such a strong bottom of the funnel setup. And this is where systems come into play, right? So that you're not manually having to do it every time. But every single one of our customers are referring people to us, repeat customers. And then another element of this for especially for home service, folks in the trades, not so much construction in terms of B2B, but B2C particularly. Every single one of these homes is also a client. People might move. So really that customer when they move, if we're staying in touch with them, it's like, hey, have you updated your address? You could do that on an annual basis in terms of like an annual campaign. Have you updated your address? And then if they do, yes or no. And it could be by way of, and we actually are having one of our clients do this year, just send out a little Christmas gift. It doesn't have to be expensive. For one of our B2B clients, we're actually sending little cornhole sets for their office. And so for B2C, it could be like, hey, we want to send you a little gift this year. This is a great test to see has their address changed, and thus is there new opportunity with them. And then if there is, okay, what's their old address? Who's the new homeowner? So now all of a sudden, that branching, I love that visual. So the customer, it's like, okay, here's all these different pathways of after the sale that we can actually continue to alchemize on this relationship. But I love, Mike, I love that you're saying double click. I'm going to double click on the 12-month process after the sale. Guys, they're done the project. Most people we're done. We're out. But 12 months of sending follow-ups to nurture and tend to these people that is so important. People, they're emotional creatures. It's like all about relationships. And I just really want to emphasize that at the end of the day, you talked about giftology. We got a $150,000 client just by sending one $25 gift. It is so powerful, and especially with B2B particularly, so much of that is predicated on relationships in terms of business development and going to networking events and these big jobs. But y'all, B2C, same thing. One of our clients in the past, we really encourage them to do lunch and learns with other industries within the home services space. So if you've got a painting business, well, go and introduce yourself to a drywall company or a plumbing company where you guys can actually serve as subs together, whether you're the general or they're the general and they're hiring you out. Where's there opportunity for relationships to be established so that the home customer is not the single target, but we're thinking bigger and beyond that. And then you have different pages set up. Now it's all the way back to the top of the experience. What's the experience like for the customer versus the partner? And then really making sure that we're clear on that. And then also the messaging, it all funnels into who are we? What's the messaging for each one of these so that they're giving an emotional experience? And when we were talking about messaging earlier, trust, establishing some of those core elements, guys, humor. Like, are you actually giving them an enjoyable experience? Like, being funny and being witty, if that's who you are, don't be afraid to show that. I keep getting I keep seeing this over and over and over again for myself as well as other people. Guys, the more we show up in terms of who we really are, the more we're going to stand out. And we'll also demarcate. So we will have people who say, I don't like that, but then you'll have the strong retention in terms of employees and customers. And you see this with Dunkin' and Starbucks. Dunkin' people hate Starbucks and Starbucks people hate Dunkin'. That's exactly what you want. That's a strong brand.
Yeah, I just saw Grant Cardone say he's like, we just hit 5 million followers, and I didn't think it would happen because we lost over 1 million followers for being so
Yes.
opinionated, right? So yeah, to your point, right?
Yes. Yeah. Every single post, you should have some followers gained and some followers lost.
Well, here's the deal. I'm gonna lose some followers if I don't wrap up soon. So I want to pull out more of you in the last few minutes that we have. This has been awesome. Is there anything, Christine, that we didn't talk about, we didn't hit on, that I didn't ask you, that you're like, dang, coming into this, I really want to hit on that, and we didn't get to that yet? Is there anything that we didn't discuss yet that you want to bring up before we go with the final question that we always ask every guest, and also allow people to stay in touch and find you? I want to make sure that that is advertised, because I'm sure people are going to want to stay in touch with you. But before we do that, any topics we didn't get to today that you're like, I'd really like to click on?
Um, yes, quickly, and I'm watching the time. So I will just introduce briefly the knowing framework. This is the framework I've used to really get to know myself on an individual level as the leader of the businesses, in order to then be able to ensure that I'm actually keeping myself under check and assuming radical responsibility for that. And then I can actually analyze how I'm leading other people in the relationships, business, etc. So the knowing framework is predicated on 3 questions. And it's looking to the past. Who was I? Understanding core memories and moments that shape today, who am I now? And how those core memories and moments shape and inform the mindsets today. And then doing an audit of, what do I want to keep? What do I want to get rid of? In order to then say, okay, well, who do I want to be? Because yes, we can have our vision, we can be so clear on where we want to get to, but if we're constantly being chained to the past of these core moments and memories that we've never moved through and really come to understand, now we're able to break free from that and create something new. And so create the space, allow for time to move through these 3 questions. Who was I? How does that moment in time show up today to inform me in the present? And then how is that needing to adjust and change so that I can actually move into my potential for myself and for my business? Because these limiting beliefs and the mindsets that we have today excessively impact our ability to move forward into the future.
And if somebody wanted to get access to frameworks like that, or that framework, or have a conversation, is that something that you offer with the knowing agency, or?
Yes. Yeah, and actually we're in the midst, very, very early in the midst. It'll probably be done by the end of the year of a complete rebrand of it, of the Knowing Agency in general. But yes, you can go. Christine Marie is probably the best place to go to get in touch with me, but we're doing a lot as it pertains to building out frameworks. We're having a couple workshops over the next 3 months and really focusing on us vertically as the leader, and then horizontally, how does that show up so that we can take our businesses to where they want to get to.
And you have a book that's just got
Yeah.
released too,
It's going to be coming out in the spring.
or it's
Knowings.
coming out.
Yeah, it's coming out soon.
Cool. Very cool. Christine, we ask every guest the same question. I'm just scrolling through christinemarie.com, but you said don't this is something that's being up leveled right now.
Yeah, all of it. Honestly, all of it's being like wiped clean and up leveled, but you can go to Christine Marie. It's still a working site.
Cool. Cool. We ask every guest the same question. What does it mean to you to be better than rich?
Mm, I love this question. Honestly, I'm going to go back to relationships and doing the work to be able to allow for us to be well and whole and healthy and really being able to come from this place of being led from within so that I'm not living someone else's life. I think that's being better than rich, is so that I am proud of the life that I've lived, and with intention creating a legacy that's translating and showing up in the way that I exist in relationships, so that, man, that connection is so vibrant and alive, and I'm living life with experience in the bank as well as money in the bank.
It's beautiful. And if people want to stay in touch with you, the best way for them to stay in touch with you would be to
Go follow me on Facebook.
follow you on Facebook would be the best place.
Let's do it.
Cool. Christine Marie, thank you so much. I'll also share the website as to what it looks like right now. But this is Christine's site, christinemarie.com. And obviously you can follow her on Facebook. She has awesome content. She puts out every day, does these lives every day, really valuable, rich with wisdom. So again, Christine, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And listener, thank you for listening to the show and tuning in. If you like season 4, with this live format, you could join us live. You could, catch it, the replay right there on Facebook. Of course, this gets on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and all the other major platforms, Stitcher, all of it. So join us live for the conversation, interact with the guest, real time, ask your questions right here. We're here to serve you, and we really appreciate it. And Christine, I hope we continue to evolve. I mean, you're doing some awesome stuff, and I don't know where the conversation, continues beyond here. I spoke on your show, you spoke on ours. Who knows what's next, but I'm looking forward to figuring out whatever next looks like. So,
Likewise.
yeah, we'll stay in touch offline. And as always, listener, leave today better than you found it. Till next time on the Better Than Rich Show. Cheers. We'll see you then. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at betterthan_rich and join our Facebook group at the Better Than Rich Show. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, leave today better than you found it.